Alright, the first step I'm going to do is to disassemble, pull out the decoder and disassemble the whole locomotive. I've decided that I am going to repower. The reason being, after giving it some thought, this GP7 is likely to work a lot of locals and will more than likely be used by itself as a single unit. So as a result, having a nice smooth motor that responds well to the decoder, works well with the TCS automatic prototype notching. I think that's really important. So while the F7s are almost always going to be used in multi-unit consists, this is going to be used by itself more than likely. So I am going to repower this. But regardless, let's take the decoders out. And while I've used motherboards in kits to do decoder installs for like an Athearn Genesis, on these Bluebox units I've just been using the shrink wrapped type decoder. So what I generally do is try and get a small screwdriver. There's a little bit of a gap there and you can just kind of get in there on one side and gently rotate and get in on the other side and do the same thing. And then you get it out far enough that you can usually just wiggle it free. Use your fingernail a little bit. Same procedure for the keep alive and speaker wires on the back. So there, the decoder's out. And you'll also notice, this is, I think I mentioned before, this is the first decoder install I ever did, and you'll learn as you move on. One of the things I did, I think I was testing it on a track, and somehow I ended up shorting out both the front and back headlights. So I rewired this one to use the green and purple wire. I think I used the green and purple wires to run the two headlights. So I returned this decoder to TCS for an upgrade, and in the process I believe they just replaced it with a new decoder. So small fee, I think it's 20 or 25 bucks to do that, but TCS has just been really outstanding in terms of customer service, and I just love their product. What I did is at my hobby shop just picked up a new wiring harness. It was a whopping $3, so that'll get included in the new install. So now, let's see, we've got to get some of these additional wires out of here. As I also mentioned before, you can see I've got black electrical tape and I've got some Kapton tape over top of it. I've completely stopped using black electrical tape because it's just messy and doesn't do nearly as good of a job as the Kapton tape does. So yeah, this amber colored tape is Kapton tape, and much better. It doesn't leave the sticky residue that the black electrical tape does leave, and you can get the Kapton tape in a variety of widths as well, so I generally get it in a pretty narrow strip. I haven't seen a need for a wider tape. I don't know how wide it is, quite honestly. I can go grab the roll. Looks like it might be about a 1/4 inch. I can find out. Yep, 1/4 inch. So I've been using 1/4, and this roll, I forget how much it cost, but this roll's lasted me for, well, what, 4.5 years now, so probably well worth the investment. Now, some of these, I've got my common positive wire. Again, I'll probably just clip these. I cut that a little long, little shorter, just because I wanted to get some of that electrical tape residue off. And these are the headlights. The speaker I can just pull out, I think. Oops. I broke apart my speaker enclosure, which I can easily fix, but again, I was just using double-sided tape to keep the speaker in, and what I've transitioned to doing, again, just because of the residue that tape leaves, I've transitioned to using just clear silicone caulk, and when that's removable, and when you remove it, you can generally just scrape it away, and it doesn't leave nearly as much of a negative residue. Yeah, here it is, the purple wire. So yeah, I used the purple and green I reprogrammed for the headlights, but that will get fixed now that I've got the new wiring harness. I will be able to, as I've done on the other GP7 and the F7s I will be able to put ground lights in. So haven't decided what I'm going to do with the shell here. If I want to remove these lights, I would like to soak this shell just to get any oils off of the body before I paint. So I don't know if I'll take the headlights out or not. I haven't decided yet. Something else I've noticed is that I've been using these white metal, get in the camera here, I've been using these white metal MU hoses. More recently I've been super gluing them to the bottom of the pilot, which really helps, but once you flex them once or twice you can see here's one's missing. I've got the part here, and I'll just super glue that back on. But if you, and see, look at these, just from catching in the foam cradle, they've pulled up, and I can feel that they're moments away from releasing from the body. If you saw the most recent NMRA magazine, a modeler from NMRA just a little bit south of where I am, Glenn Thomas, did his Minnesota commercial slug unit, and he indicated that he used black decoder wire. So I suspect he's talking about just using 32 gauge fine black wire, and obviously that'll give you a little bit more flexibility. Alright, I've cleaned out some of the, I had a weight up in here underneath the dynamic brake fan, so I pried that out. That was just super glued in. Cleaned up some of the tape and removed the rear headlight. The front headlight I think I'm just going to leave in for the time being. The next step will be to start preparing the shell for the final detailing that actually replicates more closely the prototype. These handrails were the stock Athearn rails. Probably I was 6, 8 years old, maybe, I don't know, maybe 13. Anyway, I was young, and I don't know that I even had super glue or anything like that, so some of the handrails are not ideally installed, and as a result of that, I'm probably going to remove, I might leave the end handrails, probably going to remove the side handrails just to ease in painting and detailing, and then I'll reinstall them. What I've been doing more recently is on the stanchions, I'll drill all the way through with a fine bit and a pin vise, and then press the stanchion in, and then with some thin CA just dab that on the back, and that really seems to work pretty well. So I'll start pulling the handrails off. And also for Christmas my wife got me the Micro Mark detail removal tool, so looking forward to using that. And per the instructions, you actually put the beveled edge parallel to the model and work that way. So that's what I'll be using to remove the molded on hand grab irons and other details that I want to eliminate from the model. Like I said, I'll probably leave the end handrails on. Oh, and I just keep bending the crap out of these MU cables. I may end up having to replace them just because I've bent them so many times. They are delicate, and I am not always so delicate. Yeah, I've got one broken off there, which I still have. Alright, now I think we're probably ready to start removing some of the unwanted details. So that will be these single chime air horns, the steam equipment, and the molded grab irons. Oh, also I just used some labels that I printed to make the number boards a long time ago. Not when I was a kid, that was probably the last about 4 or 5 years ago I did that. So I'll gently pull those off, and then I'll use decals to prepare the final version. I'm just going to take these MU cables off because I think by the time I work through this whole model, they're going to get trashed. So they're just C8 on. And That one didn't come out well, but well, 2 of them came out pretty well so far. Yeah, so I'm batting 500. Alright. So those will get replaced with either another set or, you know, like Glenn Thomas, I might use some 30 gauge decoder wire. So now I can just chuck all these bits and either go into my parts bin and grab another set of the white metal ones, or like I said, modify and use decoder wire. Really can't access the back of these horns because I've got all this. I could tear all this stuff out, but I've got weights in the front headlights, so I'm just going to leave. And I'm just going to use some sprue cutters to gently get these horns off of here. Nibble away a little at the steam equipment. Shooting plastic everywhere. Alright, let's try the new detail removal tool, see how this works. The directions also say to use light pressure and very just thin, gradual passes. Looks like I gouged it a little bit, but this tool is pretty nice. I like how I'll get used to it. But that's operator error, not the tool's problem. This will all get cleaned up with some body filler. This is what I've been using is glazing and spot putty. I've found it's in my opinion it's much easier to work with than any of the modeling putties I've tried. Not that I've tried them all, but and it's considerably less expensive by quantity. So that will definitely go to fill in those horns. It's definitely going to take some patience, but I think it's, so far, I like the tool. Definitely better than I would have done with the chisel point X-Acto blade. It's not to say it won't need some putty, but certainly worth the purchase, I think, especially since it was a gift. Not perfect, but certainly better. I'll get a little, what am I using here, 400 grit? Yes, 400 grit. So a little 400 grit sandpaper. Try not to take down the rivets. Easier said than done. I had noticed this on the other GP7. There's a little nib here from the injection molding process, so a little sanding there helps that. This one actually looks like it's got a bit of a divot, so I might have to fill it. Yeah, that's a concave issue there. Get my stupid head in the way. Still a long way away from being ready. And as I did on my F7s, you can just prime it, sand it, keep doing that till you get till you're satisfied with the appearance. Gets rid of some of the finer gouges. Alright, we might be getting close to putting some putty in there. We shall see. The other nice thing about modeling a locomotive towards the end of its life, you don't have to worry too much about details, because totally reasonable for them to be banged up. See if I can get these labels out of here from the number boards. Split apart on this. Try from the other side. And I got most of it. Should come off when I strip the paint if I choose to. Alright, now we will try these molded on grab irons. See how easily or hard these are. Might end up having to take the end handrails off to be able to reach them properly. We'll see. It's working all right. Still a long way from paint. It's amazing how fine it has to be to accept paint well and not show the defects, but next task is to drill out the fans. What I did on the F7s is just using an X-Acto knife, tried to locate the center of the fan and just make a little bit of a pilot. And you can manipulate that a little bit to fine tune it before you start drilling. Then with like a 1/16, just get that started. Just working with your hands. No need for power tools. And then kind of see where you are. In this case, I'm pretty far off center. So, and come in with the X-Acto knife, and you can try and recenter it just by shaving a little. Much easier to make adjustments now. Oh, it looks a little closer. Yeah, now we're spot on. Very good. Just work down each of the indices. Periodically pull it out, clean everything, dump your shavings, and then eyeballs drifting a little bit towards the nose now. So we'll wait till we get down to the next, there we go, next spot, and then again come back in with the X-Acto knife and just shave a little. And see how that works. Alright, next step down. Getting a little closer. Still just a shade front. The Canon & Company fans do give you a little bit flexibility. They hang over a touch. Not much though. So you can always come in with some gap filling CA if you have a larger problem. Yeah. Pretty close. Yeah, we're looking good here. the best things about this hobby is that it is a constant learning opportunity, and while you can see I've gotten all of the fans drilled out and just have the Canon & Company fans set in there. I have that progress completed. I've removed all the details I talked about and have filled those with putty and have sanded them. Detail removal tool works really well. I'm still getting a little bit accustomed to it, but I think once I get the hang of it, actually very little putty will be necessary. It's just a little bit of sanding. If you do it very gently and gradually, it works very well. But the learning part is I have not stripped locomotives before, simply because I've had locomotives that were in the B&O paint scheme that is the prior paint scheme to the one I'm using, and tons and tons of photos online seem to indicate that the B&O didn't seem to ever strip their own locomotives before they painted them, because you can see when times were tough and they weren't really maintaining their fleet very well, you could see that the previous paint schemes showing through. So I was doing that just because it seemed like it wasn't really a inaccuracy. This particular one I chose to strip for a couple different reasons. I'm maybe not entirely certain why. I think the thickness of the Bluebox paint, you use paint on top of that and you lose some of the detail. So one way or another I decided I was going to strip this one, and I'd done a bunch of tank cars, because most of the tank cars you get are billboard tank cars, and at least the inexpensive ones that I wanted to work with. And those billboard tank cars, not prototypical in the 70s, so I converted a whole bunch of tank cars to leaser tank cars, and in stripping those I really was having a challenge doing that. And as it turns out, and of course everybody probably already knows this, it's amazing the difference between 70% isopropyl and 91. 70% isopropyl alcohol, if you let it sit for over a day, you could kind of coax the paint off of the model, but 91%, it's like 5 minutes and it comes off with a toothbrush. So now I know exactly how to do it, and I can't believe that something so simple was the challenge. What I accidentally did is got impatient and tried to use a little lacquer thinner, and I knew it could possibly damage the styrene, but I tried to go quick. But what I've done is I've lost some of the detail on the side of the body. I think what I'm going to do is just paint that, make it look like a peeling rusty area behind the logo, and we'll see. That's about the only spot on this side. Now the other side is a little bit worse, and what I opted to do is cut in a door, if you can see that, and I'll paint that obviously. And I just used a piece of 0.01 styrene, and I didn't want to open it too far so that you could, I don't want you to be able to see in, because I'm not going to detail the interior, but I think when it's all painted up you won't be able to see in because it'll be too dark. But that detail of that door, I mean, you've seen that before, where the latches are broken or whatever reason, the door's hanging open. So this unit's going to have a door hanging open all the time. But hopefully the intent of that will be to distract you from all of this just banged up detail and just knocked down by the lacquer thinner. So live and learn. But the good news is now I know, boy, if only I had just gotten 90% or 91% rather isopropyl alcohol, it'd be a lot easier. So I guess, and this is the answer to the question everybody's been asking, or at least I assume everybody's been asking: why do you spend all this time working on Bluebox models? Well, there's your answer, because I didn't mess up a really, really good high quality model. So I think this is still salvageable. You can still tell what it is, and I think if I paint it correctly, I think it'll wind up being just okay. So more to follow. I'll probably post this, and then we will have a couple more segments on this video.